1006 on Central Illinois Ag Station, WHOW.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the Zoom today, Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools. Dr. Taylor, good to see you today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. You're well into your summer break there in Heyworth. What was the end of school year calendar like? When did y'all have your last day and graduation and all those things?
Yeah, we finished that Friday before Memorial Day, and our graduation was the week before that. We've kind of moved it up earlier to avoid all of those state playoff type things with baseball, softball, and track. So we do it on a Sunday, and it was beautiful weather. You know how the end of the school year is, so it was like chaos and like a sprint for the last 3 weeks.
Yep.
And then graduation, everything just kind of calms down for that, and we had final exams after. As I was pulling in this morning, though, when I get here pretty early, I'm like, wow, there are a lot of cars here already. So weight room's already full every morning. There were 100 kids a day here last week for youth basketball camp, and this week is youth volleyball. So it kind of feels like we're not out of school, except for I see construction, you know, and all these projects going on. But there's kids everywhere, and you know, just enjoying themselves.
Sure. Well, let's put a bow on the 25-26 academic year, Dr. Taylor. You know, were there anything in terms of, you know, curriculum things you introduced or things you did new this year that you I don't know if you pilot or things and then, you know, put them into practice, you know, permanently? How about some of that?
Yeah, of course. Well, we had adopted partial English curriculum the year before. So late in the year, we piloted the first semester, but then we adopted the rest of our English curriculum in social studies. And we had also implemented a couple years ago the smaller class sizes in K2. So we reported out to the board and are keeping those things in place. So keeping those class sizes around 15. And seeing some great gains. You know, our state scores were the best they've been. And then our district goal is 80% of kids on grade level in reading by third grade, and obviously 80% for all grades. But, and for the first time ever, we met that goal with our testing in May. And we met it in math, and we are like 2 points away in reading. So I think some of those things, a lot of that work we've done, obviously, with curriculum alignment and adoptions, and then really being tight with how we do interventions and having certified teachers do those instead of paraprofessionals. We changed that when we went to the smaller class sizes. So really starting to see the benefits of that 3 years later. So it is going to be fun to watch, you know, when it's, you know, there's usually a group of kids that have struggled and aren't on grade level, and year after year, and your teachers are frustrated, right? Because you're trying, and you just can't get them there. And we're starting to see, you know, that shift and kids really move, you know, move on to grade level, but also that helps you all the way throughout high school, right? And life.
Sure.
So really, you know, excited about our academic results at the end of the school year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want those kids moving on and being behind, right? I mean, that's just not good for anybody. So
yeah, I mean, that's the lead indicator for dropping out of high school. And we don't have a huge dropout issue, but it can lead to that, right? If you can't read the material, and if that's difficult for you to understand, it becomes embarrassing as you get older. And there's, you know, all of these other ripple effects. So just getting kids reading on grade level earlier and then helping those results permeate through our school system, you know, that's the big goal.
Sure. I know the state legislature just kind of wrapped up its season there in Springfield over the weekend, and one of the big things that districts have been watching for a while, and some have been proactive in this, is the cell phone ban. And I know you're one of those that has, the Heyworth is one of those that's been kind of proactive in this effort. How about the cell phone ban? Does what Springfield passed change anything for you all, or how does that fit with what you've got going on?
I don't think it will change our plan for next year, but we'll see once it's signed. And sometimes then we usually get regulations from the State Board of Education that say these things must be incorporated. But what we have done, and the board has already approved for next year, is just really a tightening, limit those distractions, focus on school. All of us, or most of us, get enough screen time outside of school, so we need to minimize it in unless it's for educational purposes. So really K through 8th will not, you know, up through 8th grade, nobody should have a cell phone that's visible at all on them. If a junior high kid needs to use their cell phone and it's at school, because sometimes there's transportation issues, they can use the office phone or come and get permission.
Mhm.
If there's somebody they need to communicate with, parent or guardian. And then high school will be limited to more social times. So think passing periods and lunches.
Mhm.
And just really trying to, and you've probably seen it happening in a lot of districts, but we talked about it this year. Even our one-to-one program, as we were purchasing Chromebooks for next year, we're going to do a thorough review this year and make recommendations for the board. The days of nobody having access to a device at home, that's gone.
Uh-huh.
And we don't want to be using it too much at school, right? Kids need to be writing, reading, holding materials, engaging with curriculum in a variety of ways. So maybe some changes the following year too.
Sure. I know the screen time topic is really becoming more of a prominent discussion point within schools, as you talked about all the screen time at home, and really the amount of I don't know if there's a correlation, but the amount of anxiety, depression, things like that we're seeing in our kids, just trying to maybe minimize the exposure of that screen time and the things that kids are seeing at home, maybe just bringing them away from that, getting them away from that while they're at school. Kind of the debate of, now that we know all these things about the anxiety, the depression, the screen time, do we need to scale back what we're doing at a school level, and maybe go back to a traditional learning environment of maybe note taking, of maybe just all the pen and paper side of it all? I don't know, where does that conversation start?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of research on this, and you've basically nailed it there, but how it's affecting kids in so many ways that I don't think was ever anticipated, right? With anything good comes the bad. But all of us, all schools and parents are facing this, kids struggling with more anxiety and depression, a lack of some of the social skills and social emotional skills that they need.
Mhm.
And so really valuing, I wouldn't say eliminating technology, but minimizing for sure, and making sure we're having those human interactions, aside of the personal impact that it has on kids, right? Then schools are dealing with social media and, bullying and just saying mean things to each other that kids won't say face to face, right? It's a lot easier behind a screen. And so, whatever we use, teaching responsible use and kind of having that balance of, we've got to teach you technology skills, but you also, these life skills and these communication skills are equally as important. And we'll have kids on the team to look into this. We'll have parents, we'll do surveys, right? We obviously have a lot of data from local employers about what skills they need. And I think it's at least time to just take a look at what we're doing and see if it's best serving our kids.
When it comes to that conversation and that policy, I mean, I don't know if you're a district that's gone one to one, or if there's access to like Chromebooks or iPads or whatever the case may be, when needed. But
Yeah.
what does maybe scaling back look like? Not necessarily just Heyworth specific, but I mean, do you envision going back to lots of, not lots of, but the pen and paper note taking and the I don't know, what does that look like, I guess, to scale this back?
Yeah, for us, we are one-to-one, and we've been one-to-one over 10 years
Uh-huh.
with Chromebooks. And for us, we talked about, is it having access, but not, in the room access at all times? And don't think computer labs, but mobile carts, right? And I think a lot of it is going to be data collection for us from our teachers, like how much do they need? How much should the kids be using based on scientific research, right? And then how many devices per building does that result in?
Mhm.
I think with the older kids, it's hard for me to envision the Chromebooks going away, because there's so much in their dual credit classes, right? I mean, they're using theirs for a lot of other things. But I will say our teachers, some of our English teachers have even talked about going back to just having kids write. Sometimes just using a pencil and paper, although we get, a hand cramp now because we're not used to it. You just remember things well. Sometimes when you write it and you see your own writing, we all learn differently. And so I think having, several different ways kids can learn, that'll be more at the secondary level for sure. But earlier on. I think it's definitely less digital use.
Mhm.
State testing, a lot of our testing is done on
Yeah,
computers, so
right.
it's definitely not going away, and we're going to need quite a few devices.
No,
But
no. And I tell
um,
you, there are advantages to devices, you know? I mean, it lessens the load on,
yeah,
say, textbooks and you know, paper and all these things. I mean, there is an advantage to the technology in the classroom, but you know, like you said, it's becoming a balance of, you know, we know kids are on their screens a lot at home, and as you know, even as a parent myself, I mean, I'm guilty of,
yeah,
you know, do I let my kid have too much screen time today? Was today a big screen day for them? You know, those sorts of things.
yep.
So it's going to be an interesting balance that schools are going to have to strike because of the advantages, but also just the data and information we know about devices.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I feel like a lot of our younger classes, they use devices, but I don't know how much overusing. I mean, a lot of our teachers are still very good about paper and pencil and
Sure, sure.
reading books that you can feel.
And I was
But
going to
again,
ask, is this a bigger like is the conversation of this like make it sound like a bigger deal than it is? I mean, can you put the toothpaste back in the bottle, as they say on this one?
yeah, I do think it's going to be challenging, especially with kids, right? They're used to doing it the quicker way. Sometimes technology makes it so quick. I mean, you know what I mean? And so I think we'll definitely get some pushback from them. But I'm really interested to see what our parents
Hmm.
think,
Hmm.
what our students think, and especially our teachers. Like, how many hours a day should a kid be using technology in my class or
Yeah,
whatever it is?
yeah,
And so
yeah.
getting all of that data together, it's going to be interesting. People will be all over the place.
They will. They will. It'll be an interesting discussion as it goes along. On that note, Dr. Taylor, let's break, come back with some more. Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools, my guest on the Zoom. More to come with Dr. Taylor on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
fb.org.
Let's check the markets now on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jim Taylor. Corn lower, beans and wheat higher at this hour. July corn down 2.5, 444 and a quarter. September corn down 2.5, 453 and a quarter. December corn 473, down 2 pennies. July beans up 2 3/4, 1189 and a half. August beans up 2 3/4, 1193. November beans 1195, up a nickel. July Chicago wheat 616, up 5.5. July KC wheat is up 6 3/4, 656 and a half. July bean meal down 380, 326 even. July bean oil up $1.75, 79.47. Livestock trade, August feeders 351.67, up 325. June live cattle up 67 cents, 248.92. June lean hogs 96.07, up 22 cents. Energy market, August Brent crude oil 97.28, up 616.
Hey, it's Shane from Highway 51 Exchange, your mower and equipment service pros just south of Clinton. Click our banner ad on DeWittDailyNews.com or give us a call to schedule your free pickup and delivery today. Highway 51 Exchange.
Spring brings brighter days and more time to enjoy them. Your home should too. At Hickory Point Garden Homes in Forsyth, enjoy one-story living and walking paths right outside your door. Spend less time on upkeep and more time enjoying spring. To learn more, click our icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
The Illinois Emergency Management Agency has designated WHOW's many platforms on AM and FM, as well as WEZC 95.9 FM, as standby radio stations for emergency messages to be sent for severe weather, as well as for the Clinton Power Station. We also have a direct link to the National Weather Service for watches or warnings to air immediately when they're issued. Keep yourself and your family safe by tuning into the WHOW platforms on AM, FM, or streamed online, as well as on WEZC 95.9 FM.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools, is my guest on the Zoom here for today. Dr. Taylor, summertime in Heyworth. What do you got going on in the school buildings this summer?
Yeah, it's definitely already project season. So when you pull in, you see trucks here, and we're doing a lot of fun things this summer and some that are a little bit overdue. So updating our wireless infrastructure,
Uh-huh.
which doesn't sound pretty, but when you know how many people are streaming and using, our phones are on our network and that sort of thing. So that's a big project that's being, partially funded by E-rate. We also have a crew right here. They've been here last week. So they're replacing all the lobby flooring in our new gym area and that hallway. So the flooring we installed when we built this maybe 5 years ago had been bubbling since after a year or so. So we worked through that under warranty and making sure we didn't have to cover any of that cost. But all of that's coming up. It's already actually up and halfway down. So in addition to that, we have those kind of things that aren't pretty, but have to be done. So think boiler and AC repairs. And then one that's going to be just an amazing project. And we talked about earlier this year, we had a donation, an anonymous donation for $750,000 to really give our ag building a complete, new face and even, a lot of new HVAC, boiler, that sort of thing. So it's going to be great space for our kids. The drawings look amazing, and that work should be kicking off here soon.
Yeah, for sure. What will that mean for them? What kind of advancements will that mean for them?
Yeah, just the space, storage, being able to, having the cabinetry, having the tools to do all the things they do. We have a great ag program. Our kids get it in junior high. It's one of the larger programs. They do very well. But just having updated technology, equipment, and space. Honestly, we've done a lot with facilities here, at least in the past 5 years. And that's one area that hasn't really been touched. I mean, it looks like it's straight out of the 70s. And so kind of brings it up to the speed with everything else in the district and just, creating space and programs that kids enjoy.
And if I'm not mistaken, this really leans into a lot of the improvements you've made in the building over the last several years. I mean, obviously the extension of the building itself and the renovation and everything inside is a part of that. A lot of investment inside the school walls the last several years.
Yeah, I mean, the district and the community has supported that. We have, completely revamped all of our classroom furniture, creating flexible spaces, gymnasiums and, obviously the stadium repairs we didn't have a choice but to do, and really dedicating space to intervention where kids can learn in small groups. None of those things are easy and take a ton of work, but this is one of those projects that's just going to be a lot of fun. And we have more dreams for out there. We want an outdoor kitchen for community dinners and to use our greenhouse. And so hopefully this is step one of much more to come in terms of our ag and FFA programs.
That suggests to me, Dr. Taylor, the district is doing well financially.
Yeah, we've done very well. Our latest recent hit that most districts, and I'm getting ready to read the governor's budget after our talk today, but the biggest hit we've been feeling lately is the reduction in the state funding special ed and transportation. So we are looking at almost a $900,000 deficit in that line for special ed alternative placement. But we're going to look into, how can we better serve kids? How can we, tackle some of these things without depleting all reserves? We did lower the school district property tax rate. And so, trying to be conservative with that while also getting the things that we need for great programming.
Sure. Very good. Very good. That reduction in transportation, that's going to be a big one. I had a superintendent, I forgive me, I can't remember who it was, but I was talking to one of them in the last couple of weeks, and they said it may not look bad now, but it's not going to get better. So
yeah, we transferred to that fund this year, and it's not like there's a big cushion in there, and it's several $100,000 deficit every year.
And I wonder, is Heyworth battling issues with, say, bus driver shortages, and are you contemplating like whether it's combining routes, changing up times to better utilize the drivers you have? I don't know. What are you thinking as along those lines?
Yeah, we outsource our transportation to Illinois Central School Bus, but I mean at least 3 days a week our director of transportation is texting us, hey, I got a driver out today, right? It's just hard to get drivers, and then it's hard, to staff those sort of things. And you've got buses going everywhere. If you have a pretty active school district, you have all these games and events and activities, and we want kids doing these things, but it's getting harder and harder to get them there. The costs are going up, but there's the reimbursements going down. So it's kind of backwards in Illinois.
Yeah.
And so we really are looking at, every year we look at routes. We also evaluate all of our safety hazards. So we are eliminating one of them this year. And we're trying to work with the village that areas where we're busing because there aren't sidewalks, can we get sidewalks in there and do the things to make this area safe? Because that would free up a bus for kids who really do, need the ride and, live over 2 miles away. So
Yeah.
trying to reorganize those things, but there's just not much room to do a lot.
No question. Going to be a big talking point, I'm sure, as we reconnect in the fall and start to think about the new budget year, later in the first semester there. So, very good. Well, Dr. Taylor, as I look at the clock, a couple of minutes yet still with you this morning. Anything else coming up this summer in Heyworth Schools? Maybe not necessarily facilities related, but I don't know, activities or things you're working on there in the district.
Yeah, we've got a lot of fun stuff going on, but summer tends to be HR season, and I hate to talk about it too much because you don't want anybody to resign at this point. But we do know one teacher who's interviewing elsewhere, so I'm assuming we'll have to hire for that. And we had a late resignation in science. We have a teacher who's moved to be an administrator in Bloomington, but we had a gentleman who applied who was finishing out at ISU and he hadn't submitted, and I saw like the start of an application in there and one of his references. And so I reached out to him. So we did interview for science last week, 2 people, and we got a teacher for that. So hopefully everything stays steady and nobody moves around. But it does seem like we get a couple weeks in and life changes. People, their spouses move, and then, we're all scrambling for the same few people.
Are you finding that the quality of candidates is getting better for these positions?
The quantity is so small that quality is hard to judge, but we do attract pretty quality candidates. And one of the most effective recruiting methods for us has really been word of mouth. If you know somebody who teaches this and they're, thinking about or in this area, the problem is then you start annoying your peers because we're all just taking teachers from each other.
Yeah, right.
This kid that we're hiring for science is an ISU grad, so we didn't have to steal him
There
from
you
anyone.
go.
But
Very good.
the later it gets, the harder it gets.
Sure does. Well, have a great summer, Dr. Taylor. Always good to catch up. Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools, my guest. Network News comes your way now.